when I think of brewmaster, I kind of think of the dude in the Sam Adams commercials with a huge beard, who's always going on and talking about what he knows in his beer. I guess it's like, a lot of people think of him as like an artist these days, but it's like just a job, I guess. I don't know. It's like a profession. It's not really, it's not really art, I guess. I don't know.
So yeah, I guess it's just somebody who makes beer, knows how to make beer, knows a lot about beer, drinks a lot of beer, or in general drinks a lot of alcohol.
It's just like brewing beer, which has been done since like the beginning of time. Basically, like back in the day, people used to just like throw crap in a bucket, and then it would turn out beer.
You know, there's this notion that, oh, gee, you're a brewer, you must sit back there and just get sloshed. You know, there must be just a party. It's a big party, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Brewing is, you have to be on top of your game. You cannot approach it that way at all. I mean, it really is an art and a science, and it has to be treated that way, and you can't be sloppy about it, because there is a sizable amount of money at stake. If you brew a batch of beer and it's messed up because of some carelessness on your part, it's anywhere from thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. I moved into an apartment that was half of a house, and the guy next door to me was, he's about 5 years older than me. Of course, I didn't know it at the time. He's a biker, Harley guy, you know, and he worked night shift at one of the local industries, and so about every night, 10 to 11, because he worked 11 to 7 shift, I'd hear him firing his Harley up out back, and I thought, wow, I wonder who that guy is. You know, he seems like he's pretty cool. And my bedroom wall was up against their living room wall in this house. And so I'd hear him in there talking and laughing, and I thought, I bet he's a nice guy to get to know. So one evening I was sitting playing guitar, and he heard me, and so I heard this knock on my door, and I answered the door, and here it's Mike. And he introduced himself, and we proceeded to talk and had a great discussion. Well, he had a friend who was a home brewer, and at the time I didn't know anything about this, and so I met his friend Bob. Bob came over and brought some homebrew with him, and it was hilarious. It was interesting tasting real beer for the first time, I think, in my life. I mean, when I was growing up, it was stuff like, you know, Budweiser, Stroh's, Miller, and the exotic beers that I would have back then were things like Moosehead from Canada, or maybe Molson or something like that, and we thought those were big deals back then. But Bob brought over some of his homebrew, and I tried it, and I was just amazed. My thought process was, how can anybody actually make something this good in their house, in their apartment? The supplies I needed to try my own first batch of homebrew, and so I did that. I made what was called Kevin's Strong Red Ale, and it was interesting. It was my first or second batch. Honestly, don't remember, but the place I ordered from had a recipe contest, and I thought the beer turned out really good, and everybody who ever tried it really liked it. So I sent in this recipe, and I won. So what I ended up getting was a voucher for free ingredients and stuff like that. And so that was the beginning of the madness. That's when it really kind of took over and took off, and I developed a passion for it and a real knack for it. And so I started brewing a lot at home. I had been waiting for this place to open up, Market Cross Pub, because I was so interested in, and finally a place comes to town where they were going to be serving wonderful beers from all over the world. And so I walked in, I'll never forget this, the day I stepped foot in the Market Cross pub, I thought they were open, and they really weren't open yet. The door was open out front, and I just assumed they were open. And so I walked in the door, and a fellow, he's probably 10 years my senior, the owner of the place, he says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, sure, I'm here to have a beer." And he says, "Well, we're not open yet." And so I introduced myself, and that was the beginning of a wonderful friendship, the owner of this place and I. And at that point, I just became a regular customer in this place.
Market Cross, like I said, has this really nice atmosphere. It's really tame. It's really, an enjoyable place to go and drink some beer or whatever, and have a good conversation with people.
We have a system here that is almost like just a giant homebrew system, and that's honestly the reason I'm able to do this. I don't have a brewing degree. I don't have that kind of technical knowledge. I do a lot. Brewing is really a combination of art and science, and so a lot of what I do is by feel. And I have the scientific, logical mind that can reason through it and figure things out, but yet a lot of it actually comes from the heart. It's a feel, it's a creativity, like a painter or a cook. I think a significant cog in the big wheel of the business, so to speak, in that we're the only place in Carlisle, in the Carlisle area, that produces their own beer. So it's kind of neat. There for a while, we were the only microbrewery in Cumberland County. It's hideously inefficient. For us, it works because of the backward nature of the system in many ways. But for any legitimate brewery, I mean. But that's part of the charm of this brewing system. It is so basic and is so close to, in my mind, the basic brewing process that is thousands of years old. That it's kind of neat working with it because it's not a lot of bells and whistles and high-tech things and computerized brewing. And I mean, it is all hands-on. And there's so much of the brewer that goes into it. There's so many things that could go wrong too. The variables in our system are unbelievable. Just dozens of. I mean, that's one thing that we have here. A lot of manual cleaning and old world kind of brewing, in a sense, that takes place here. We do things in this brewery that you won't see in any other brewery, just because we have to. It's just the way this particular system functions. For example, you would never see anybody keg beer the way we keg beer. We basically take beer that's been conditioned out of a Grundy tank, and it goes into a sixtel. It's actually the same kind of sixtel that a regular home brewer would use. The beer goes in uncarbonated, and it's actually physically carbonated under CO2 pressure by having somebody sit and shake the keg. And we figured it out. It took me a little while to estimate this, but it's about 220 rocks back and forth of 30 psi CO2 going into it, and that gives you about 2.4 volumes of CO2. It's kind of neat having that sort of randomness involved. But as long as it's a good drinkable product and that it's not infected or you've got some kind of really bad off flavor from treating it poorly, it's kind of neat. It's an adventure.
Old style of a pub, dark, dim, pleasant, good old-fashioned food. Really, really an enjoyable place to go and have a few beers, enjoy some friends, and enjoy some good food.
I think the pub is exactly what it's supposed to be. It's an English pub, and as a pub, it more or less adheres to a lot of the traditional ideas of a pub in Europe or in England. A pub being a place where regulars come, family comes, kids come, and it's a place where people interact and they socialize, and it's a wonderful place. It's just great. I think it's It's an integral part of the Carlisle community, and it's been well received in this community, and it's really built up a heck of a following. It's kind of neat to have this little piece of heaven right here for this little community. And we have a lot of regular customers who have supported us over the years, and it's been wonderful. And it's really neat because as I interact with all these regular customers, as a customer myself, they confide in me. This is my favorite beer that you do. This is my favorite beer. And it's so funny because for many of them, it's different beers, you know, and it just reinforces the fact that everybody's taste is different. And so it's kind of neat to know that I'm producing something that everybody has a special favorite for.